in the presence of all the public here. And I'll welcome everybody to the Washougal City Council's workshop of Monday, March the 9th, 2015. You'll have to have mercy on me tonight because I forgot my glasses.
What size,
Borrow some?
what strength are they? Are they just reading glasses?
No, they're prescription.
Yeah, okay, never mind.
So, Rose, let's do the roll call. See who's here.
Councilmember Boger,
Here.
Councilmember Wagner,
Here.
Councilmember McDaniel,
Here.
Councilmember Greenlee, Councilmember Shoemaker,
Here.
Councilmember Freeman,
Here,
Councilmember Lindsay.
Here.
Okay. There being no public to make the comments, I think we'll just bypass that one. And let me see if I can borrow a pencil here. Much better. So we can go straight to the police business. Important stuff, by the way. Your guys came by this morning, and they came into the neighborhood afterwards to apologize for having to use their sirens, and we told them, you do what you need to do. We're glad to have you in the neighborhood. About some guy doing 50 in a 35 zone,
Oh, wow.
where kids are.
It's been a busy day around the county today. Okay, so I see on here we're looking at the region agreement first. Okay, well, thank you. As you may or may not know, we have been working in conjunction with Portland Police, as well as just about every other agency in Clark County, and maybe 22 agencies in Portland on this records management system that they've called Region. And basically it's a shared records information system. Like I say, we've been working on it, or they've been working on this for about 2 years, and we're finally coming down to the last bits of it right now. So what you have before you is the IGA that would be with Portland that spells out kind of the terms and conditions of the agreement, which we would have before you to sign at council. But basically, the system we use right now is going away. EPR is going away. Pretty much the law enforcement agencies in Clark County, Sheriff's Department, Vancouver, La Center, Ridgefield, use EPR. That's going away, so we'll be going on to this regional system. The beauty of this is it allows us to see everybody's records and what's going on within the different police agencies. So we know crime doesn't stay just here, just there. These characters move around. So it's a great tool for us, but it's quite an undertaking. I think this is probably the largest kick out that they've ever done before with this system. So it's been a long haul. Things have gone back and forth. So what you have before you is I think pretty much the final piece. The go live is scheduled for April 14th. Inside the packet, it's a lot of legal stuff, but basically it has the definitions that you'll see in some of the wording that's contained. The other definitions, such as the RPA, stands for the Regional Participating Agencies. City is referred to the City of Portland, not the City of Washougal. And then things like CJIS, which stands for the Criminal Justice Information Services. There's also 5 exhibits inside, and I'll get to those in just a moment. But basically, just a quick overview on this. It talks about the services that are provided by Portland. Things that would be providing access to the equipment to log into the system. They'll provide training and whatnot for our instructors, then our instructors teach our people, all sorts of system support, and then 24 hours, 365-day a week support over the phone. Our responsibilities, we have to be compliant with all the laws. We have to provide our own equipment. We have to meet system requirements for that equipment to log onto the system. We have to meet CJIS security requirements. And then one thing that kind of came up that's kind of interesting was the public records piece, and that because we have, basically we'll have all these law enforcement agencies at our fingertips. If someone files a report with Portland Police, we can look at that report, but I can't give that report out. So maybe they had a Washougal resident had a incident in Portland, maybe a theft or a vehicle prowl. Portland took that, they come to our office and say, we'd like a copy of that. Can't do that, they've got to go to the originating agency. Let's see. Then there's, I bet the other thing on it has to do with, you'll see, for withdrawal and termination. And basically, this is a perpetual agreement. It runs year to year. It can be terminated by either party via written notice within 90 days. And basically, the termination date would be the January 1 of the following year. So if you filed for a termination now, 90 days from now, then it wouldn't take effect until January 1 of 2016. One thing you'll see, probably the Exhibit A has the most important piece for us, which is the user fees for us, and that's taken a long time for them to kind of narrow that down and figure out where we're going to be paying for that, but it's down to $61 per officer per month, which translates to an annual fee of $16,640. The good part of that is that the Clark County Sheriff's Department has agreed to pay for our user fees for the first 2 years under a subsidy agreement. So we'll have an MOU with Clark County. So we will basically, the bad part, not the bad part, but we would end up having to pay those fees up front to Portland. Then we invoice Clark County and they pay us within a 30-day period.
Why are they doing that?
I believe because it's a grant, and they couldn't do that. We were kind of under the assumption that, oh, good, we're just going to pay for it, and then we won't see a bill for 2 years. But it came out just a couple of months ago that, no, that's not going to be the case, because it has to do with some grant funding that we have to pay directly, and then we'll be reimbursed. There's some other exhibits that has to do with policies for using systems, law enforcement information systems called links. There's others for system procedures and policies, and basically that Portland kind of controls that. They put those things up on our website for us to see. Exhibit D talks about defines equipment and security, and that we have to have certain firewalls in place and static IPAs, that sort of thing, which thankfully we have IT here to take care of those things for us. And then there's also a protocol included that addresses problems that we might see as far as system problems and a resolution process for that. So basically that's it in a nutshell. It's kind of dry reading, but we really don't have a choice in this. We've got to find something. If we didn't do this, we would have to come up with our own system. The benefit is that we're all in this together with a host of agencies, and it's quite a complex software. It requires a lot of training, but we're almost done with that piece, and we should be ready to go.
If I remember correctly, when you presented this to the Public Safety Committee, they were in favor of this.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there were 3 points that I remember coming out of that. One was, we don't have a lot of options except this one. The others are more expensive and put the burden on us.
Correct.
Why not participate in this? It also gives you more information.
Yes.
Secondly, the information we're going to get for this might save an officer's life, because they're going to alert us to bad guys coming our way from outside the city. The third one is that you currently have the resources to implement this phase of it.
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure I remembered that correctly. Michelle?
Yeah, what did the one question I had is, what did the other system cost per person, the EPR? I didn't know if you
asked that question. It was free.
It was free, okay.
And basically, Clark County let us use that system, and we've used it, geez, I'm going to guess for maybe the last 10 years or so.
Okay.
But the system is failing, and they've kind of band-aided that together, kind of limped us along, and everybody's abandoning that, and it's not an option to continue with EPR down the road.
Okay. And then, does everybody have to have access to the system, all 20 police officers? Because I was reading in the report, like, some people would be specialized in accessing it, but every police officer?
All the commissioned officers
Okay.
will have access to that.
Okay. And then, after the 2 years for Clark County, it will be $14,640 annually then, every year after that?
Correct. And, you know, I mean, there could be
Is there an escalator, like inflation escalator in there?
You know, that part I don't know, Brent, to be honest with you. I mean, sure, there's some caps on that,
You're ready.
but
I'm not in the
I suppose one of two things could happen. If it looks like either it's not working out or it's not something that we want to pursue, we've got some time to explore other options. Certainly that's on everybody's mind is cost containment. And I know several agencies that would probably opt out if the price got to be too expensive.
What would be the next option that really,
Battleground, La Center, and Ridgefield use a program called RIMS, and we could probably jump onto that system. You know, they have a backup, so for them it's like this is something they want to do, and they'll kind of compare it to what they have. I think it's good for everybody to be on the system. The more data that we have that we can look at as far as what's going on in that shared kind of helps us with, you know, solving crimes and seeing who's doing what. But that is one option. I've looked at some others that are like hundreds of thousands of dollars, but RIMS would not be that expensive, although it'd be fairly expensive for us to implement that.
Like, if one of the patrolmen stops somebody, can they look up immediately on this and find out who they've stopped?
Well, you can do that through the systems that we have right now.
But with this system, they still be able to do that?
What it would do is it would probably give us more information that they can do in the car. A lot of times we don't know if this person was, what type of criminal activity to say they were involved in, maybe in another agency, that we wouldn't have. So it's at nighttime and you stop a vehicle and you've got these, you know, look like they've been out doing something they shouldn't be doing. When you run them, you can kind of look at other reports, say, this person's been involved or a person of interest in other cases. So.
Is RegGen, is it a regional
Yes.
system? So it's not like a national type?
It's produced by a company called Versatern, and we call it region because it's the regional area, the regional law enforcement agencies that are involved in it. So it's kind of the nickname that we put into it.
So would like Seattle be in it, or just Portland, or?
Not in this regional group. This
Okay.
is kind of confined to Clark County. I don't think Woodland is looking at it yet. Salem, as far south as Salem, maybe looking at, but they talk about Multnomah County, Clackamas County, Portland, and a lot of the outlying agencies. I think there's a total of 22 in Oregon, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
and over here, we have the Sheriff's Department, what about Vancouver?
Vancouver, Clark County, and then all of the outlying agencies, Camas, Washougal, Battleground, La Center, and Ridgefield.
They said in the Senate they had an alternative one.
They do. They're using
They're
RIMS,
gonna have both.
and they're gonna run both for right now,
Because they get it free for 2 years.
because they get it free. And it was always Sheriff Lucas's idea that we all, I mean, he really pushed to have everybody on this because he really believed it was the right thing to do. And that's why they offered to pony up for the first 2 years. At least it gives us a little bit of time. Yes,
I apologize for being late. I missed the first part of the presentation. Does this replace the 450 megahertz handy talkies?
No, this is just our records management system.
Okay.
How we do reports, that sort of thing. It also gets into our evidence and how we track and move that as well.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
You have access, of course, to like
Did you have a question?
CIS too,
Oh, okay.
national.
I just have one last thing. So potentially, we could use it for 2 years and do something else if we
Correct.
wanted. Okay.
It's kind of a win-win for
Yeah.
us. I don't really want to look at doing something else if it works out really well.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the training is quite extensive. Washougal is one of 3 training facilities in Clark County. We really lobbied hard to have that facility here. It's about a 40-hour training program.
Addressing your point, though, if we were gonna do something else after 2 years, at what point would we have to begin to do that? Pretty
Probably
early.
after the first year, maybe, if
Yeah.
not sooner.
That could be a year or more procurement process, because we'd have to scope and spec.
Yeah.
And then we would have to go out for RFQs and RFPs, and then we'd get the pricing back. But we could run a process like that while we were paying for this. I mean, because we can't shut this off unless we've spent a year or however long it would take to get the other one ready to go.
What I'm hearing, though, is that the police department likes this. Is that what I'm hearing?
Other agencies?
Well, we're so new into it, Dave, we're still doing our training.
Yeah.
But
You
it,
mean- you mean other agencies that have been on it, or you
No, I
mean
mean,
us?
our police department likes this. So it's not likely that in the next 2 years, we're gonna say, throw this thing out, the baby with the bathwater, and say, let's do something else.
I don't know if we'll be able to get, I'm just thinking about in the other areas where we have mission-specific applications, the annual maintenance fees approach this number, if
Exactly.
not more. This is a really good deal, and I think the cost must be diluted because of the regional nature of it. I'm sure that there will be escalators. It's gonna cost Portland more year over year incrementally to continue to serve this for us, but if it becomes cumbersome and we become aware of other products that are, provide us some level of savings and provide the same level of service to us, then we would look at those.
There's a cost to that, though. If you're jumping from system to system every 2 years, the cost is in training and expertise. Once your officers get comfortable with it, they wanna stay with it.
This is true.
They don't wanna be learning a new system every 2 years.
If we went to another system, we wouldn't be able to interact with
sure, Dad.
everyone else. So that negates the whole real purpose.
Our hope is that maybe the price will ratchet down a little bit as
More people
as
join.
more people get in. I know Salem was looking at it, certainly that's a large agency. So the more people that participate, the lower the cost. And that would be our hope, that particularly if it's successful, and we anticipate that it will be, that others will see the benefit and sign on.
Why was the EPR system free again?
It was provided to us by the Sheriff's Department.
Okay.
They run that program and they manage that program. They just allowed us to jump onto it. We were using another system before that called Crime Star, that they didn't have access to that data, so it was probably in their best interest that we use that as it was for us to be using it as well.
Was EPR something they built, or was that proprietary?
That was a
That
proprietary.
was also proprietary.
So this one is just more expensive and they're not able to, or, well, they are footing the bill for 2 years, but,
This does so much more than EPR ever thought of
Okay.
doing, so it's a completely different system for us.
Well, your question was more along the lines of, why wouldn't they continue to finance it for us?
yeah, I was just curious.
Oh, finance,
This new
EPR
one.
EPR
The
is
other one
probably
was
a
free
legacy
to
system.
us.
Yeah,
That doesn't work, anymore, and the life cycle, most of the time, life cycle on these apps is about 7 years. It's starting to get smaller, and the companies are smart, and
They're
they
charging more.
they move you off of support. They
Yeah.
won't support it anymore, then you're completely on your own. You can't even, you can't even buy a bronze maintenance package from them. And then, but they'll sell you their next gen
Yeah.
product. So that's probably about a 7-year cycle for all of our apps. That's just the software industry that they force us through. And we could get into a lot of conversation about
Yeah.
why that's problematic, but it's a
And
bummer.
it just strikes me that this is better, faster, cheaper, which is kind of what the trend has been when you move to newer software, newer apps, that you get more faster for cheaper.
yeah, it just takes the whole automation process that much further down the road, so far as scanning information into the system and streamlining processes. It's something that EPR could never do. Anything else?
It'll be on the agenda, consent agenda in 2 weeks. The MOU's already been executed because it's Portland giving us money. CCSO giving us money, so that's an easy one to sign. So that one's done. This one requires your approval because it commits us to paying $16,000, $14,000 a year.
Almost 15, yeah.
Yeah. So 2 weeks, it'll be back.
Any other questions?
Questions afterwards, let me know, and I'll try and get them answered.
Ron, thanks for working the Public Safety Committee through this. I know we had a lot of questions, but you were able to answer every single one of them.
It's been a journey.
Still on it.
You're still on that journey, yes. Okay, well, thank you. The next one that we had, Sherry couldn't be here today because she's not feeling well, but we had looked at kind of expanding Sherry's role somewhat. She's kind of helped us out where she's helped us with tagging and towing vehicles. And it just seemed to be the next logical step would be to see if she could help out with traffic tickets. Parking tickets, I mean, sorry.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Yeah, there is a difference, yeah. So we tried to explore the possibilities of getting a limited commission for her to do that. You know, Animal Control works on a limited commission basis. Sherry worked with Scott Russin on this, and Scott kind of felt there was really no clear direction on how to do this, that felt it would be his suggestion that we could just write that into code. And the code would read as such that it would allow the chief of police to authorize either a parking enforcement person or code enforcement to write just parking citations, non-moving traffic citations.
I was so surprised when I realized that she couldn't, that she had no teeth. All she could do was nag at people. She couldn't, there was nothing, and so I'm way in favor of this.
Oh, yeah.
I don't-
Vancouver's done it for years.
Vancouver's, in fact, we met with Vancouver's probably about over a year ago and sat down. They were very nice. And they brought us in their city hall, and they talked about their parking bureau. And I think that's would probably the next step for us to be able to do that, where we could get off of the, develop our own tickets and process those internally. I think that would be the next logical step to this. But right now, if she could just help out by writing some traffic tickets. She receives complaints kind of in the downtown core area where we have 2-hour parking now. And it's it's not that it's not important, but it's when police get around to doing things, those types of things are probably the last thing that we get to. Nonetheless, it's still important, but we just don't have the staff
Car will
to
be
do
gone by the time the officer gets there.
Yes. So to allow Sherry the opportunity to be able to do that kind of helps address that problem without overtaxing police and at least getting the situation dealt with.
My only question would be, does it make sense to expand it even a little further to tobacco enforcement? I can see you might not want to get involved in liquor enforcement for all kinds of reasons, but I think it's worth thinking about whether there's some other areas that we could expand her role into.
I have no problem with looking into that. She's out and about, so she, sees these things. I know in talking to Sherry, some of her work is seasonal, so as we get into that season now, she gets busier more on the code enforcement side with her traditional responsibilities and duties. But we can pursue that, we can look into it.
I don't know, we'd have to look at the statutory construct. I don't know if we have the ability to give her a limited commission in other areas. The statute gives us the ability to give her a limited commission for parking. She has teeth in other areas. She can write infractions, civil infractions, and she writes civil infractions as a last resort, for someone's grass is too tall or junk in the yard. I don't know if you can get a limited commission for
Yeah, I have no
tobacco.
idea either. I was just thinking that we should be as expansive as is reasonable in this.
Yeah. You want to get this in place as
Yes.
quick as you can, so if it's.
Oh, you
okay,
bet. No, I
This will
would,
be here in a couple weeks, but we'll keep looking at that.
yeah, that's what I would ask is, yeah, I would hope to do this right away and think about, well, is there something else? Or maybe there's something else we can add to the Animal Control Officers Commission. I have no idea. I don't need an answer now. Just something to think about in terms of finding a way to get things covered that are hard to cover.
It's a new way of doing business.
Well, is this part of the rewrite of that job description that you're coordinating with community development?
Well, this would certainly require kind of massaging of her job description. So, you know, Mitch and I have had some conversations on that, nothing recently. Just so we know, there's certain things that Sherry does that's kind of like out of the expertise area for police. That's, I can rely upon Mitch to help and get guidance on those matters because I'm just not familiar with it.
And vice versa.
Yeah, so we try and work together, and that's worked so far. So, but certainly, if this were to go through, then that would require kind of updating her job duties and requirements.
Okay.
And it's coming back on the 23rd also?
Joyce, I like your approach to this. I agree. If it doesn't have teeth, it's not worth having on the books.
Well,
I
it's
don't
just, she just, I mean, there's just so many, well, I see in my neighborhood, not what you're talking downtown, but people park their cars on the streets for too long, or their truck. She comes by and tells them to move it, they move it, and then 2 days later, it's back there again, because she can't cover the whole city continually, and she has no teeth. I mean, she can't put a ticket on them, so.
It's frustrating for her. It's
I,
frustrating.
and it's just giving people the leeway to not pay any attention to what she's doing. And it's a big enough city for her to have to cover it all continuously. She can't do that every day.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, I was surprised when I found out she couldn't write a ticket.
Well, we're working on that.
Good, good. I'm very pleased about that.
Thank you.
Are we ready for the next issue? Next item?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Brent, you happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Dave, I gather you're it?
Right, and if it's okay with the council, we had some late-breaking news in community development, and so that Mitch could go after he shares that with you. If you don't mind, he has
Great.
a walk-on item to share with you.
Thank you.
You're like,
Good.
walk on like in Hollywood?
Yeah,
You can thank me later.
yeah, okay.
So are you letter C then?
Yes, you see.
Okay, thank you, council, for letting me walk this on. As Dave mentioned, I want to keep you up to speed on our comprehensive plan update. As you are aware, the county, along with the cities, are working on our mandated update to our comp plans due in June of 2016. This council has taken the position that we weren't going to look at expanding our boundaries, and I expressed that to the Board of County Councilors at their last meeting, and they opened the door for expansions, another door for expansions to occur that closed on March 3rd. So the day after I sat in front of the Board of County Councilors and said Washougal doesn't want to expand, we got a specific request from a property owner who wants inclusion within our urban growth boundary. This is the parcel in question that's in the Dropbox. Because I needed to have that answer, or that placeholder with the county, I submitted a letter request prior to the March 3rd deadline, and but with a caveat to county staff that I was bringing it to my council to let them know. So this is a specific request from a property owner. It's a 40-acre parcel of property. It is contiguous to our existing urban growth boundary. It's currently zoned R5, 5-acre minimum. They are going through a process, at least they've had a pre-app. It's my understanding from the owner's consultant that they are going to be making an application for a cluster development, which will basically give them 8 1-acre lots in the southeast portion of this 40 acres, leaving about a 31-acre parcel of property, which is the remainder parcel that nothing can happen on unless it's annexed into a city at some point. It's important to remember this is not an annexation request. This is an urban growth boundary request. So they just want to be within the city's urban growth boundary. If it came into our urban growth boundary, it would be residential, R1-7.5 most likely. It is important to also know that there are city service to this parcel of property already exists along the east property line and north property line. As our water line extends out to the development, bless you, the development to the west known as Sea Diamond. So they already do have water there, and they will be paying their latecomers agreement to the Sea Diamond folks as part of that development as it goes forward. So because this is a little bit different than what I had previously talked to you about, but it was a specific request from a property owner, I wanted to see if council was still comfortable with us proceeding with that annexation, or excuse me, very big mistake, urban growth boundary expansion idea there.
It's not there.
And your recommendation?
My recommendation, it's important also to remember that we don't have to, this doesn't cost us any more. We don't have to do an additional environmental review. This was part of our 2007 request to the county, and so we already did the environmental impact on it. It's not a de-designation where it's an ag or a forest land coming to an urban land, so there's no other additional work that needs to be done there as well. So my recommendation would be that we at least allow this petition to move forward through the county process, and that we would be willing to accept that request.
The shading on there, I'm trying to read it on this little teeny thing.
That's shading means, oh, I'm sorry, unless you, that the blue is the parcel.
Blue is the parcel, and the
yeah.
one that's butting up against to the east,
That's our urban growth boundary.
okay, and the darker down below is the city?
That is the city limits, right? I don't see annexation being an issue for this property for a while yet either. It's just a request to come into the urban growth boundary.
What about the parcel that's between our UGA, that little
The little corner
panhandle there, yeah?
in the northeast, or
What's the status of that, yeah?
it would stay in the county, so rural 5.
It belongs to someone else.
It does. Mhm.
Well, it looks kind of odd. Yeah.
Well, I think you look at our entire boundary, it looks kind of odd. As you move around, but
Be nice.
How far across the field from Forest View is that?
well, that's probably about 700 feet. I'm just looking, that's a 40-acre piece. So it's actually probably about 1,200 feet.
Any chance that's gonna be less than 1 acre plots?
Someday, yes. If it comes into the city, it'll be 7,500 square foot lots.
They'll have to plat it, though.
They will have to plat, they have to go through a subdivision, right?
We defeated that once.
There's been no development that I'm aware of up there.
That's because we defeated it once. There was a proposal,
Homeowners up there, or you mean the council?
the homeowners.
I don't know anything about that. I mean, this is up off of 20th. As far as I know, they've only had a pre-app to do a cluster development there.
27th is between 34th, actually between Forest View and the property there.
Okay, so well, I'm not sorry. That's not the best pointer, but so.
Well, where's the water tower? Is that the street you're talking about?
No,
The water tower sits
over to the
right
east.
there.
Oh, okay.
They put the application in for 1 acre lots, but they could put an application for as low as what then? If they wanted?
1 acre, nothing lower now.
Oh.
They're seeking development within Clark County.
Okay,
The only thing they're asking us now is to include their property in the urban growth boundary, so at some point in the future, they could be annexed into the city of Washougal. And at that time, their zoning would change from a 5 acre minimum or cluster development. It's just a way to develop property, a different way to develop property in rural county.
I was just wondering, could they request that now? They're
Nope.
not,
Nope.
even if they wanted, okay,
Nope, they can't.
okay.
They're not contiguous for an annexation unless somehow we use the street to get to it.
When you say cluster development, you're talking about 7,700 square foot lots?
No, cluster development is 1 acre minimum lots, and it's, you basically have all the density in your 40 acres, and you put it down in one corner. So they'll have 8 1 acre lots in that southeast corner there, and then a 31 acre parcel just sitting there, a remainder parcel.
And
But the present zoning is 5 acres.
Yeah.
So you take the 40 acre piece and you can put 8, but then that other piece, you can't put anything on it until it comes into the city.
And they don't need to come in, they don't need to be in the urban growth boundary
No.
to
No.
do that
No.
cluster development.
Nope.
So that's gonna happen.
I'm perfectly happy to see a 1 acre development up there. If it goes to 7,700 feet, I will personally lead the charge against it.
Well, if it comes into the city, that is what will be in front. I mean, that will be a very real possibility of 7,500 square foot lots.
Well, is their goal to build or to sell those 1 acres and have people build homes on them?
Yep.
So they're not gonna wanna tear them down and,
Yeah.
up for 30 years.
There's, you know, if, the developer will have to answer a lot of those questions. If I develop property and sold it as 1 acre with a 31 acre open space behind it, and then I come around and get zoned into the city, and I'm gonna do a 7,500 square foot subdivision around those 1 acre homes, that's a selling point that a developer will have to make. That's not in front of us now. This has been a specific request, much like annexations, which are property owner initiated. This is just a request by a property owner to come into the city of Washougal's urban growth boundary.
And repeat, this very specific ground, which is the subject of this request, was in our prior
Yes.
package that was in front of the county, but it did not get placed in the UGB.
Correct.
And that was a decision of the board the Board
Board
of
of
County
County.
Commissioners at the time. For whatever reason, they did not include it. So this is a repeat request
Yes.
of maybe a
That's good.
different property owner.
How long ago was that?
07.
Okay, so it was a different board.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, very different.
I should know the answer to this question, but I don't. I do know that though, that one of the articles of faith of planners is, sorry, yeah.
It's all right.
Couldn't resist. One of the articles of faith of planners is, you don't build or allow big residential parcels. You don't, you know, they hate the
In a
1
city.
acre in cities.
In cities.
Would it be possible for us to amend our zoning ordinance to allow big parcels like that without violating GMA?
We currently do not have density, a maximum density requirement. So if you have
Or a minimum, isn't a minimum density requirement, wouldn't it?
a minimum, sorry,
Yeah.
a minimum density requirement. So if you have, 5 acres and you're in the city and you want to split it in half, you can do that. And
Could we put that in our zoning ordinance to have 1 acre, a zone district with 1 acre parcels if we, I know that, that would be anathema to many planners, but, would it be legal?
Well, I think that as long as we were demonstrating that we are meeting our goals of, currently goals are typically around for their residential, it's 5.7, units per acre. That's the density goal, which is typically about a 7,500 square foot lot. We, not having any of those, minimum density requirements, we still meet that number, and we have consistently met that number, because we have.
So it's the overall.
It's the overall, what are we, when the rubber hits the road,
If we
what are
can
you really
accommodate-
doing?
If we can accommodate the population growth in more high-density zone districts, it would be okay then. to-
Right. If we were-
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah, if we were running into problems and not meeting density, then I think we would be hard pressed by, the Growth Management Act to do something else to demonstrate how we're gonna get those densities.
Is
We'd have to
density
do-
scheduled to go up?
Excuse me?
Is the minimum density scheduled to go up?
No. Nope, we haven't changed that.
Do we have control of that?
Well, it's a countywide planning policy. It's been that way since '94. That's typically been the urban designation is about 5.7 units per acre. And we've consistently demonstrated that we're at least meeting that.
So if we wanted to introduce zoning districts, comp plan designation and zoning districts that had lower density than our existing single-family designations. We'd have to amend our comp plan the map. We'd have to amend the text and the goals, all through the planning commission back to the council, and then we could do it. And you're right, it's a higher level math, right? You just have to meet your population targets. And so to the extent that, say, something like this was annexed into the city down the road, and we were meeting well the targets that we are required to meet, you could sort of append to the city at lower densities. But then, 15 or 20 years later, when the new number comes and, oh, wait a minute, we have to find room for another however many thousands of people, we have potentially made that more difficult to do because we've used up ground at the lower densities. But you never know when that would ever happen.
So it's not like you'd go back to the landowner and say, oh, sorry, now we're gonna have to change yours.
You have to short plat your
Yours.
1 acre.
Well,
parcel.
yeah, we
You could do that.
you'd
but
zone
you
it
don't-
that way.
By law, you could do that, but
You
that
can,
would really-
yes, you have the authority to rezone property. Now, I think we're very pragmatic about that, and we take that very seriously, like when we were working on E Street. We listen to property owners and constituents and try to do the right thing in the balance. That's not something that happens often, but it
Would that be
can.
an eminent domain? No, it wouldn't be like we're taking it over.
No.
Never mind.
No, most of the time, property owners don't mind having more options on their property. They're concerned about when others have more options on their property, right? And they might band together in order to truncate the options that they would all have, right? Then there's CC&Rs. Those can trump even our own stuff, so it can be complicated. Right now, there is no decision before the council. The decision for this to be in the urban growth boundary is not a decision of the Washougal City Council. It's a decision of the county council. However, you could direct Mitch to withdraw our ask for it, I guess.
Yes.
That would be the way. So I guess you could make it so that it's not in front of a property owner. Can a property owner be asked, or do we have to ask?
Typically, the county has accepted property owner requests, although this was a very specific request to the cities, this extended time period of March 3rd. So,
if we withdrew it,
yes.
then the county council might say, sorry, property owner, it's too late. But they could also accept it and do it. Okay.
Right.
So I just
And
wanted to make sure you understood what your authority was.
And I did let the consultant know that while I was making the request to the county, that I hadn't been in front of this council yet, and that depending on this outcome, then I would, do whatever it is that the council desired.
So what are the drawbacks if we were to say yes to this plan?
Well, short of, annexation into the city and development of 7,500 square foot lots, depending on how you look at it, that may be a drawback. That may, for others, that may be a good thing. For us, coming into the city, it's more property, more tax base. Again, we'd have to provide services out there. Water is already there, and has been for a number of years.
You said the tower was south, but is that the street that it's on? The one that's to the east of that property?
The
water
tower
tower?
is south and east of this property, and there's another one that's actually north and north and
Go
east.
by it.
There's
By the fire station.
our other tower is up,
It's by the fire station.
yeah, up here.
Oh, okay.
I would, to answer that question a little more, Mitch, if I might, Counselor, by standing aside and allowing the county council to decide whether or not to put this in our urban growth boundary, it keeps options open in the future for the property owner and for the city, but it does not cast any specific path. You do not have to annex the property. You or a future council decides whether property should be annexed or not. However, under the GMA, when something's in your UGB, it's sort of an expression that we intend to annex it. Why would you have it in your UGB? You put it in your UGB to influence what happens there. And so one of the benefits of having that in our UGB is nothing can happen there short of that cluster development without it coming into the city. So now we would have control over how that would develop. Right now, we have no land use policies that would provide the sort of lower density that at least one member of our council would advocate for strongly, as you've heard. But we could change that. That could change. It gives us the control. If it doesn't come in,
Did I
we'll do the
advocate for
cluster
that?
development.
Does that mean?
No,
No.
it was Dave.
Councilman Shoemaker.
That's his backyard there.
Yeah. Was advocating for an acre, I think. Yeah.
The proposal was to put a condo development up there on that farmer's field across from us, across the creek from us, pardon me, the south fork of the river. And also to take at least one of our cul-de-sacs and put a bridge across that river and that small canyon there to that development.
I was thinking apartments would be great up there, Dave.
Yeah. I'm wondering if that development
That's what
might have
we're
been in the
concerned
area
about.
that's in white, if they were gonna bridge right to it. I don't know.
Yeah,
They would've got-
I-
I don't think they could've got to the blue.
I'm
This-
not aware of,
It must, this one is probably further to the north than what that one was.
I think it's on the other side of 27th Street.
Yeah.
And so it's probably not, there are trees along 27th that would block the view of what's going on there both ways. So it's probably not a problem,
Until they come down.
unless you start putting 7,700 square foot lots up there.
I would recommend, just if you want my recommendation, I think it's always good to be able to control property that's in and around your community and to have those decisions. But if there's a strong concern about the typical residential development that happens in our community, and I'm not talking about the details of street standards or those things which we're gonna be conversing about, but just generally speaking, well, you know, that's what it would be someday, but we can change that. If it never comes in, the county controls it.
I would vote in favor of this at this time, because as you say, it's almost zero capital we're using to control future capital.
Right.
But I would be very concerned about when we annex, how we develop it. Of course, that's probably gonna be long after I'm gone, so.
Do I understand correctly that basically you can annex only a contiguous area? You cannot annex islands?
Yeah, we can't reach out and annex, but what I don't understand, and I have to, maybe someone else knows, if you can use right-of-way to get to it. You annex some right-of-way.
initially I've heard no.
No, okay, so,
Can California.
So how do we qualify to get this?
well, it'll just sit there, it'll just turn the color, that light cream color, that light gray color, and sit there in our urban growth area, and we wouldn't be able to annex that until such time as property that's in the urban growth area became part of the city and reached to that. So that's gonna be a while.
The eastern boundary of that is Lair Road?
Yes.
Okay.
So whoever owns the property just to the north of that fork of the river would have to come into the city, go north, we'd have to annex that in, and then it would get there.
Yeah.
That could be well out in the future.
What's the area over by that fork in the creek?
Is that EC? Is that what we
I
have?
can't, is that
No, the-
Jennings? Jennings.
North of
yeah.
Jennings is actually high density. It's multifamily.
Oh, really?
South of Jennings, it's actually the creek that runs through Forest View, and just in this area right in here is commercial, and then employment center to the south,
Down
on the
over here.
east. Yeah.
Wow, I'm gonna have to go for a drive. I've been through there so many times, but I just can't picture it.
What about the area to the south of the,
Of the proposed
Blue?
area,
mhm,
that's rural,
Joe?
rural 5.
Give me a call.
skip
Come
it,
on up,
that must be.
stage on the back deck and point it all out to you.
We just sit there on the back
Slope.
deck.
Slope.
Oh, yeah.
I have a friend that
Well,
lives
there is.
up there.
Make it look prettier on
On
the
the
map,
road.
take that in too.
You cross You go up past the water
I'm
tower.
not sure
That's
what
why I'm
parcelization
trying to
is
get the
there
water
either.
tower in
TBD.
my head, so I can
Maybe
get a feel for
pretty
it.
well parcelized.
Are you satisfied with this one? Any other questions?
Is it, I have a question. Is it public information, the property owners?
Oh, yeah,
Already?
it's a,
The Fosbergs, or the, Hopples?
no,
No?
no, it's a, well, actually, I don't know. It's a LLC, it's a Kaiser Development LLC, so that's those folks, then,
Just, that name is very familiar. to me,
Okay.
so.
They could be the principals in a
Yeah.
development LLC.
and like I said, they are moving forward with an application with the county to develop it presently.
And they came to us?
They just came to us to come into the urban growth boundary.
I wouldn't withdraw our request.
We ready to move on?
I'm fine with
I'm good.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the
Mitch.
short notice.
Thank you, Mitch, for putting that together for us. Dave, are you taking care of the
I am. I have the next item.
Thank you, Dave, for letting me go.
Public Works?
again.
Thank you.
My wife thanks you, I'm sure.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Thank you, council. This is a renewed conversation about transportation benefit districts. The reason that this is on the agenda and the reason that you have a draft ordinance in your packet is that recently, over the last couple of ad hoc committee meetings, where almost the full group here, sitting as the committee, expressed quite a bit of interest in this particular topic, and staff in Public Works and myself made a suggestion in that venue that it might be in the best interest of the city to put a district in place through ordinance as a placeholder without enacting any sort of a revenue piece, but just to secure our position with respect to having a transportation benefit district. So that's why we're here today. I have a very brief background on this and a very brief overview of the TBD. We've been through this several times, but I think it's always good, and for me as well, to just kind of reacquaint, mention what the proposal is, and talk about the next steps.
Dave, this is separate from the car tab, right?
A TBD is necessary to do a car tab, but a TBD does not have to do a car tab.
Okay, got
But
it.
it is a, and we'll get into that in a moment in a little bit more detail. So that's,
So it's an actual agency then?
it's us,
Us?
It's
We are
us.
the ones that are on the,
right. And I'll,
because my experience is like with C-Tran, it's a,
No,
it's
it's
a
not.
separate entity, it's nothing like that.
Well, it is a separate entity, it's just that it has the
It's
same
run
board
by
of
the
directors,
council,
basically.
right, right,
or overseen.
right. And in fact, this slide gets into that very
Okay,
specifically.
thank you.
So this is the statutory construct for a TBD. If you'd like to take a peek at that, that's where it is in the RCW. It is a quasi-municipality, and it was set up by the legislature on behalf of locals. We asked for this quite a few years ago as a family of locals to create a sole-purpose funding organization for transportation improvements in communities. And so the legislature and that group came up with TBDs, Transportation Benefit Districts. So it is a separate entity with independent authority, very limited authority, but independent nonetheless. There are several revenue options, some of which are subject to voter approval, and we'll get into that. It's created by councils, by an ordinance, and you, as the legislative body that authorizes and establishes the TBD, you are the governing body of the TBD. And when you do that, you're ex officio from your council role, and you're independent from your council role. An example of that you might know of is when the county council sits as the Board of Public Health. It's the same people but they're the Board of Public Health when they deal with that stuff. And so, if you were to do this, I would anticipate if there was a meeting of the TBD governing body, we would adjourn very briefly, and then you would wait 5 seconds, and then you would convene as the board of the TBD. I guess one other comment on that is you can be assured that in the creation of this, you are not divesting yourselves of any authority that you currently hold. You're just providing authority to yourselves that you wouldn't otherwise have, but you still hold that authority. The way that they're formed is you give notice of hearings. There's hearings required. You hold those hearings, and then you adopt an ordinance, and that an ordinance must do several things. It has to generally find that it's in the public's interest to create the district. You have to establish the boundaries of the district, which most often are they're coincident with the city boundary, and as it exists at the time and as it might grow through annexations. You identify the functions and powers of the board, but those are prescribed statutorily, but your ordinance has to do it. And then you give a description of the transportation improvements that are proposed by the district, and I'll share with you in a little bit in our proposal to you what we mean by that. And then this is just a note, and as I mentioned in response to a question a moment ago, establishment of any fees, if you were to utilize your councilmanic authority or your TBD authority, it's done by a separate action.
Of the council, though.
Right, after the board is created. So that's the process, and we'll walk through the next steps on that based upon the feedback today. But just to give us all a reminder about what possibilities would be in the future, there are a number of revenue options that are subject to a vote. Property taxes are available in a 1-year excess levy, or if it's for capital, it can be multiple year. The 1-year excess is more unoperational. You can ask for a 0.2 cent sales and use tax would be devoted. That takes a vote. You could do $20.01 all the way up to $100 of a tab fee. That requires a vote.
It's up to, I thought it was 40. It's up to 100 now?
In the current statute, you can ask for up to $100. Now, that might be only in certain parts of the state. Now that you mention that, I'll have to double check that. It might be 40 for us and 100 in the Sound, up at the Puget Sound. But either way, it takes a vote. Then there's some tolling that you could ask the voters about.
Let's do a turnpike. Let's make Highway 14 a
Right.
turnpike through Washougal.
Well, I thought there was a councilmanic.
Yeah, that's next. So then the TBD revenue options that are not subject to voter approval would be councilmanic, and
Well, you said $20.01.
then it would go to a vote, right?
Gotcha.
in the upper
I was
category.
wondering why you put that 1 cent there.
Right. So now you can always put anything to a vote if you want to, but you don't have to. If you only have to if it's in excess of $20. That is the current status of the statute. There are a couple of bills in the legislature this session. One that already passed the Senate and has been sent over to the House. The one that passed the Senate provides you up to $40 councilmanically. However, you have to have had $20 in place for 24 months prior to doing a $40 tab. It does some other things in the Puget Sound area where they're doing a lot of mass transit and different things. There's another one in the House. It's in rules. As of this weekend, it was in House rules. It had come out of the Policy Committee, the Transportation Committee. It had made it to the House floor. I forget who sponsored that one. And it allows for $50 councilmanically, and it also allows for the imposition of a sales tax. I think it's the same amount, this 0.2, councilmanically. So quite an expansion of, particularly on the sales tax one, it's quite an expansion of councilmanic authority with respect to funding transportation. Who knows what will happen with that, obviously. If, let's say that does come out of the House just the way it is, there's no guarantee that it will. It's in Rules Committee right now. Obviously, those are competing versions of a similar topic, and the Senate and the House would work on those. But until something changes, this is the context. And just to give a feel for what your colleagues in the state are doing, there are 64. I'll just put my caveat in. This number could be a little off. This is as of this afternoon on the MRSC website, and my ability to count as I scrolled up and down the page. There were 64 active transportation benefit districts in the state, 38 of which impose a tab fee, and they did it councilmanically, 20 of which impose a sales tax, so obviously that was voted, and 6 of which have no revenue. 1 or 2 of those had sunsetted revenue. Locally, there are 5 communities that have TBDs in place. The most recent and the only one that has a revenue piece with it is Battleground. Battleground just this last year created a TBD. They've imposed a $20 tab fee, and that's beginning July 1 when that revenue is effective in that community. Ridgefield has had a TBD for a while. There was a 3-year window, I think it was 08 to 11 or 9 to 12, I can't remember when it was. There was a sales tax in place, but it was a short window. I haven't talked to them to find out if that was just to fund a project and that's how long they needed the money or exactly what that was. So they have one, but they don't have any revenue. So they're one of those 6. And then Kelso, Kalama, and have TBDs with $20 tab fees, and Castle Rock has the 0.002 cents of a sales tax, or the 0.2%. So that's what's kind of in our backyard. Statewide, it's 64, and this has been going on since 08. Most of these were adopted in 12, 13, and 14. And then of that, most of them were in 13. It started slowly. And
What can the revenue from these things be used for?
they can be used for, and I'll go back actually, so in the small bullets there, right above the note, it says description of the transportation improvements proposed by the district. The statute defines transportation improvements, and depending upon what you put in the ordinance, they can be used for routine maintenance of all of our streets. So our pavement management program, slurry seals, crack seals, shoulder repairs,
Can
all
it
of
be used
that.
for salary and benefits?
Some of it can be used operationally, but I have to explore whether or not it can be used for salary and benefits. Doing this over the weekend, the finalization to a draft ordinance, I saw the word operations, and I hadn't been unaware that operations could be funded. So I threw it in here. It's a placeholder draft, and I have some research to do on that. Heretofore, my understanding has been it's for stuff. So it's for projects and asphalt and slurry seals.
That's what people are gonna expect. If we're gonna pass this thing, people are gonna say, I wanna see it on the streets.
Right, and not just,
Well, but we're not going to fund this.
not asking you to fund this. I'm just being responsive to informal direction, if you can call it that, from the ad hoc committee.
But anybody with sound reasoning knows that eventually it will be funded.
Well,
We're just not doing it now. know
I
that.
may have this wrong, but my understanding is that if we create our own TBD, then nobody can come in on top of us.
Right.
Correct.
That's my understanding.
And that the concern, I think, that some of us have is that the county would create their own TBD and swallow us up and take away our options. If we put the stake in the ground right now, they can't do that.
And that's the only reason I would support this.
That's my
So you say there's
understanding.
64 that have done it. How many cities are there in Washington?
220 some.
220.
So not very many cities have jumped on this.
And it's about a little less than a third, right? Yep.
I'm
Is that
surprised.
correct? The county can come in and create a TBD district?
Absolutely.
Okay, see, that's
That's
been
what-
That's right.
my
Brought us to this
Um,
place.
impression, and I want to make sure
Right.
that. So by making a placeholder, we don't have to utilize it at all. It's there. If in a future council, if somebody wants to use it, they can. Otherwise, it's just sitting there.
That's correct. Until either councilmanically or by a vote, there's an imposition of the revenue, then the district exists
Okay.
for purposes that it's not carrying out. But it can exist, and there are 6 in the
We
state.
would fall under the 6, we'd
We
be the
would be,
7th,
we would become the 7th in that category.
unfunded.
Right. One of those 6 is unfunded because they went out for a vote and the vote didn't pass. There are maybe other places that established TBDs and a vote didn't pass and they just passed and they just got rid of it, but I didn't see evidence of that, so. But as you saw on that one slide, the majority of councils that are using this tool are imposing the councilmanic authority. So the proposal, in response to our conversation in the ad hoc setting, the proposal that we have is an ordinance that would create a TBD, defer on the revenue side, and there's a draft ordinance. The ordinance is in your packet. There are 2 hearings, is my understanding, and so tonight on consent is the setting of those 2 hearings. One in 2 weeks, and then one at the meeting subsequent to that. That gives some good time for you to really read this ordinance, and so I wasn't intending to do a scrutinous walkthrough with you this evening, but to cover a couple highlights. But please, between now and the next meeting and the hearing, if you would really look at that. The recitals are important because it expresses your purpose and your policy in creating this district. I think the biggest thing that it does is it talks about what transportation improvements are. Some transportation benefit districts have been created for the exclusive purpose of routine street maintenance, pavement management programs. Other transportation benefit districts have been created to fund 1, 2, 3, 5 specific capital projects. Other transportation benefit districts have been created for all of those purposes and basically as a source of revenue to do your transportation capital facilities plan and use any funds that are generated as money to match grants to build expensive projects where we match a little bit, and you'd use this revenue to do that, as well as to do maintenance. So what this current draft does is it doesn't pigeonhole the TBD into anything. It puts all of that there so that the options for this council or a future council are wide open for what you would do. And it would be my advice to do that because this is a placeholder. And so don't placeholder it just for maintenance or just for a project.
If we didn't do this and the county came in and created a TBD, can the county do the same thing, establish the $20 car tab, or do they have broader parameters than we do?
It's the same authority.
Okay, so if they established a $20 car tab, that money would go to the county for the county to spend where they wanted? Would it mean it not necessarily, or would it come back to the city?
My understanding is that the TBD would be able to spend it on transportation improvements that they defined in their ordinance. So it could be spent in Washougal, could be spent on maintaining Washougal roads, and it could be spent on capital facilities that are part of our program. But I don't believe it has to be.
Yeah,
We have
it
no
could be,
control over that.
it could be spent anywhere in the county.
Could it be spent on light rail?
I believe so.
That's what That's what I thought.
Because that could be a transportation improvement. It includes transit.
I think heading the county off is a great idea. And then limiting what we can use these things for is another good one. Because there's gonna be a fair amount of voter backlash from imposing a car tax. And I understand that. The city was chartered, was given a revenue source, it was given the responsibility for roads and streets, and now we're coming back to them and saying, need more revenue for roads and streets. And the question is, where's it going? I'm not sure we've got a very good answer for that. So I want to, personally, I'd like us to be very careful about what we designate this money for. Yeah,
We don't have a good answer yet, but I've got a list of projects that the Senate passed. May not pass the House after my lunch with Ann Rivers on Saturday. It's got some political issues, but one of them is our 27th Street Extension rail overpass for $7.5 million. That's not enough to do it.
It's not enough to do the project. That's
So we'd
correct.
have to come up with revenue somewhere else.
If the council wanted to advance that project, which really is the #1 project on our facilities plan that you've adopted, we'd have to come up with the rest, either raise that money ourselves out of our own taxing capacity, or seek other grants, and there are some other grants, phase it.
And I believe that project is actually number 5 on the RTC list.
It's an important project.
I may be wrong, that may be just the Camas, the High Slough Bridge, but.
They have different buckets of
Yeah,
projects and different
Yeah, and
timeframes.
because ours is not on the next 5 years list, it's on the,
6 to 10. Yeah, but in the Senate proposal that's passed the Senate, it gets funded right away in the first biennium.
so what is it you want from us tonight to approve the hearing?
Yes, on consent, tonight is the setting of 2 hearings. So there's an agenda bill in the packet, and we will just advertise those hearings, and folks that would come and have, something to say about that,
I
and give you their
think we're
opinion.
get a chance to meet some new faces here.
Right. There's no revenue attached to this one, but as you say, we need to be, it's clear. The whole purpose of a transportation benefit district is to create a sole source dedicated entity that can raise specific revenues for transportation. That's what it's for.
People are smart enough to realize that we're not creating this for our own entertainment.
Oh, it also blocks someone else from doing it, though.
yeah, exactly.
For now, right? And so I think that's why we're doing it now. Most of the time, and typically, I wouldn't suggest that you create a TBD when you haven't worked through and wrestled together over the revenue question and whether you wanted to councilmanically do something or ask the voters to do something, because it's part and parcel. But because of what several of you have mentioned, this notion of control locally is really important to us. Then yes, I think it makes sense to just do it. But it's an incomplete policy decision until you tackle the revenue side.
Do we need to enact a fee to block the county, or is it just creating the district blocks the county?
Creating the district, so then if the county did one, it would exclude us.
Hear, hear.
Right. That is my understanding. I do not have a formal legal opinion. It's an informal legal research, and I can get a formal opinion on that. Not aware that the county has any plans to do a TBD,
But it's also true that who knows what the county's gonna look like in 2 years.
Before you bring it to the council, Dave, it would be a good idea to have that information.
yeah, I'll make sure that.
Tonight we vote on it.
I'll make sure that in the staff report for the hearing in 2 weeks that we've taken the informal opinion to a formal opinion. And then just one last thing would be just to point out where in the ordinance you can go to see what the proposal says in terms of identifying the transportation improvements. And I said it, you know, everything is in there so that it doesn't handcuff anything. It's in section 4 of the ordinance. And it says transportation improvement funded, and it lists everything: acquiring, improving, providing, preserving, maintaining, operating, constructing, and reconstructing. That's right out of the front in section 4 of the ordinance. And then the only other thing I would say is when you, I take that back, it is section Roman numeral 2 of the ordinance.
Right.
Paragraph 4. So the sections of the ordinance are Roman numerals. So it's Roman numeral 2, number 4. And then lastly, section Roman numeral 4 of the ordinance says this ordinance creates this new section in the code. It goes into 3.99 of our code. And then in big letters it says, at the hearing, we'll have the codified version of this. And we may, working with the city attorney, we may take section 2 out, because all that section 2 is, Roman numeral 2, is what the code will say, and replace it as exhibit A. But the substance will be the same. And then after your second hearing, and even after your first hearing, if you wanted to eliminate the word operate, for example, from the list of things, and I'll do more research about what that really means and if it could really be salaries and benefits, you certainly have the ability to do that. You can also amend the ordinance down the road before you would do revenue. So you're not locked in forever, whatever action you would take. So consent tonight, set the hearings. We hold the hearings. Our recommendation would be after the second hearing to adopt the ordinance, and then onward we go in any other discussions you would want to have.
Any more questions? I think we bored Dawn over there long enough.
She's tired.
So, shall we move to public comments? There being no public here, I think we'll skip that one. The mayor's report, I have nothing from the mayor, so we can afford to skip that one. Council comments?
Just a quick tag on with this TBD. I'm just glad it would be part of our budget and we can chew on this on our Friday meetings, which is where it all started. So I'm glad about that. That's a good thing.
There being no further comment, are we set to adjourn?
All right.
Dinner.
Thank you, everybody.